learning Danish, but maybe it's not going as fast as you would like it to. And I understand that it can certainly happen when you're learning a language. But there's often a reason for that. And one of the reasons that I think is very prominent, yeah, that sounds better, is that you don't expose yourself to enough Danish. You don't hear it enough. You don't read it enough. Now, in this video, I'm going to make a lot of assumptions and generalizations, and if some of them don't apply to you, like specifically, that is fine. You can kind of just discard and say, well, whatever, I don't do that. Fine. But many people do, and that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the fact that you really need to hear a lot, to read a lot, to not just study, but to experience the language. Now, that may sound vague. What do you mean, experience the language? I'll get into that. That's what this video is about. It's about exposing yourself to more Danish because it is absolutely crucial. And as always, danishmastery.com, and a little update because it's cold. In Denmark it is anyway. In that part of the world it's cold, everything is getting a little bit sad and grey, and electricity and gas is getting more expensive. I get it. Therefore, there's a little discount on the website. So I'm talking 30%. Pretty sweet deal, and I definitely want to check that out if I were you. So, let's get into this. Like I said, you need to expose yourself to a lot of Danish, and there are different ways of doing that. And I would say all of these, you see the list, and you got movies, TV shows, educational videos, songs, books, audiobooks, podcasts, and of course there are other ways, and there are many, many sources. You want to be open, you don't want to be too picky with the sources. But ask yourself, like right now, how many of these, if you can kind of check them on a list, how many of these do you really use on a daily or regular basis? Because that's what it's about. Movies. Have you watched any Danish movies? TV shows, is that something you already tried out? Educational videos, yeah, of course you have, because this is educational, so that's obvious. But which educational videos do you watch? Now, I know the statistics. I know here on analytics, and because I'm a YouTube creator, I can see what videos get the most views and the longest view duration. Usually, that's a bit too fast. Usually it's the videos that are very basic, and it's the videos that just give you vocabulary, or phrases, or grammar, right? Like it's very, very basic or very limited. It's all this stuff that you would think, oh yeah, this is essential. And it is, but also it is not the entire language. It is just an introduction. So numbers don't lie. I can see what's popular. And there's a reason why people don't learn as fast as they could be learning. It's simply because they don't watch everything. They only kind of cherry pick stuff. And that is not very effective. What about songs? Yeah, songs are good. Sure, it's not exactly how we talk in real life, but you can still learn a lot. There's a lot of vocabulary and like cultural references, especially in rap music. I think rap is probably the best. Now, if you don't like that kind of music, I guess that's just too bad. But if you can just kind of tolerate it, you could really learn a lot from Danish rap music. But even if you don't, you can even learn something from children's songs or from regular pop or rock songs, assuming they're in Danish. So you use it. At least if you have like a Disney song that you like, then find the Danish version, because you already know the lyrics in English or your own language. So why not use it? And then there's books. There are many books. There's like a million, right? I don't mean a textbook. Yeah, textbooks, they're good. It's fine to like sit and do exercises, but what I'm talking about is like fiction and maybe some science and stuff, but for now let's just stick to fiction. Maybe a novel or a short story or fantasy or drama or epic drama, whatever it is, depending on your level. Could also be a children's book, but it has to be something with a longer context. And why a context? Why not just isolated sentences? Well, I'll get into that later, but books are really good for that. And again, it's good because it's written so you can go back. It's not a video where you have to pause it and maybe you can't go back. I mean, you can go back, of course, but it's not the same. Because when it's a book, you see everything on one page and you see the whole context. So that's really, really good. And if you don't like books, if you prefer something auditory, there's audiobooks. Of course, you don't have everything at once, but then you can hear it. The perfect combination is actually if you are reading and listening at the same time. Right? If you have an app for that, there's a couple of apps. It's kind of like a subscription where you can actually read the ebook like in your phone, or it could be on your phone or tablet, computer, whatever. So you read it and then listen to it at the same time. It's very, very powerful. Also for practicing your listening skills. Eh? Like, oh, Danish pronunciation is so hard. Yeah, kind of. But it becomes easier if you really have this sort of double. I'm looking for the right word right now. If you're both listening and reading at the same time. Then there's podcast. This is probably more for intermediate stage learners. I would say for beginners it's kind of tough. I mean, the educational one, sure, but if you're sort of intermediate or advanced, it's good because then you can really hear how Danish people talk to each other when it's not something official, when it's not designed as something educational, but just banter, just regular small talk. So podcasts, they're really good for that. It's like a lot of natural conversation. Okay, so that was sort of the introduction. Of course, we got a lot more. There's a lot to talk about here. What is this? Common mindset that doesn't work. What does that even mean? Mindset. It sounds so vague, right? But not really. This is very tangible, actually. It has real consequences. It's like it has real consequences if I don't drink water. So basically, maybe you're like, I'm serious. You have the mindset of studying grammar is the best way to learn a language. It's serious and focused, and I am serious, so this makes studying the best choice. I don't want materials that don't give me exactly the thing that I want. I'm not gonna waste my time. So basically, many learners, they have this unfortunate way of thinking that goes, something like this. You assume that because you're serious about the language, the activity you're doing has to be boring and also serious. Serious like dry or official or sort of the common way, and because you are told by your teachers or by some institutions or some government, whoever people, that this is the right way, this is the proper way, you gotta study grammar. And I think in many cultures this is very prevalent. In Denmark, in our own culture, when we are learning in school, it's not so important, but I do understand that if you come from a country where it's more sort of top down, a little more authoritative, and the teachers, they basically just tell you, just shut up and listen and do this and memorize this. It's like, it kind of fucks up your head. Like it's really not good for learning. And I'm back. So basically what it does to your head is it makes you lose touch with the language because it becomes something you study. The language becomes something you do as a task, not something you acquire. You see what I'm getting at? Because you want to be speaking Danish. You don't want to be like studying it. You study it for the sake of speaking it, but there's nothing that says you have to always study, right? So you really want to think about how you go about this. You want to acquire the language, not learn it. There are other YouTubers that have talked about this before, so I'm just repeating that. You really want to think about how you deal with the language. It has to be a way that is sustainable, right? And studying grammar is kind of like people might have this mindset that, okay, I study because it's like a game, or I pass the levels, I pass the test, and then I can move on. But it doesn't work like that because languages are fluid, right? There's a lot of unpredictable things. And also this thing, I don't want materials that don't give me exactly the thing that I want. It's like there are many things that will help you, and I'll get more into details about that later. So don't be so picky and just reject it because it's not like official or it's not the exact thing that you've been looking for. You gotta be a little bit more open, right? So yeah, this is a very common mindset. And in this video, I'm a little bit more, the tone is a little bit different because I've been making videos for 10 years. Like there's almost 500 videos on the website. There's so many materials. I covered so many things, but still people struggle with pretty basic things. The materials are there, and also other people have made stuff. It's not just me, but I'm the best. So basically, they're all there. But what does that matter if your mindset is kind of broken because you're obsessed with grammar or passing tests or doing what the government or what the teacher tells you to do? Right? So you got to think about efficiency and acquiring the language. That's why I always talk about having fun. Right? Not fun like mindless, pointless, like, oh, I don't know. But like you're having fun, you're making it engaging and stimulating for yourself. That's why most of my videos have at least some humor or some kind of, I don't know, something that's interesting. Right? All right. So this is a nice little rant, but let's move on. How much Danish do you actually hear / consume in a day, or let's say a week, throughout a week? How much Danish do you hear? Of course it's cool, and you could also say to some extent it's necessary that you sometimes sit down with your textbook, your app, and then you study, like I said before, in this very focused way. But what about when you're not doing that? Like when you're not in your study mode, how much Danish are you actually being exposed to? And from where? Like what sources? Again, like before, do you have the movies, the TV shows, music, podcasts, etc.? Where are you hearing your Danish? That's the thing, right? Because I think a fair amount of learners, they kind of have their designated or allocated study time or learning time, but it's very isolated from their day, from their daily lives. I mean, if you live in Denmark, of course you hear Danish here and there, but if you don't really focus or listen, then it doesn't help so much, right? I mean, you can live in Denmark for 5 or 10 years and still be not so good if you don't really pay attention. It sounds kind of rough and not nice, but I've seen this with former students, so it does happen. The point I'm getting at is, what do you do when you're not studying? And how much Danish do you actually hear? Are there many days where you don't hear anything? And like from the radio or the TV or a movie that's, I don't know, being offered to you on Netflix, they're suggesting that. You really have to consider this, how much Danish you actually consume, because it's not just about understanding, it's about consuming, and I'll also get into that later. There are so many points here, there are so many things to touch on, and it's pretty raw today, it's pretty straight to the point. So that is something you want to take seriously, but not serious like I am very serious, like very not fun, not joking, not laughing, but just like you want to have some focus, but other times you just want to chill. Alright, so we move on to the next slide, and this is something that I've said before. Yeah, there is some repetition in this video, because something that is also true is that all Danish is useful Danish. And could be different sources, but as long as it's like natural and is produced by native speakers, it doesn't really matter, right? Could be different context, could be something formal or informal, could be fiction, could be an interview, could be a joke, could be a million different things, but it's useful. Like all vocabulary is useful. Again, I've seen this with students in the past, that they would say, this word is not so useful, is it? It's not gonna come up in a test. I'm not gonna use this. It's kind of rare. It's not really basic or essential, so nah, screw that. I'm gonna focus on something else. And of course, some words are more essential than others. Duh, that's obvious. But that doesn't mean that you should get all picky when you're choosing what to study or what to remember. If you're keeping a list, like when you're actively studying, just write everything down, or at least write a lot of things down. It's a mistake. It's a mistake of thinking that you should only learn the basics or the essentials. Again, of course, if you're a complete beginner, then yeah, just stick to that. But you cannot be a beginner forever. Sooner or later, you have to sort of expand and open and say, yo, I gotta learn more. And there's all this cherry picking and sort of discriminating, like you're discriminating the words, saying that some are better than others is not good, right? Also because when you learn more words, yeah, maybe you won't use them so soon, but what happens is that you have more of the language in your head, and it's easier for you to make connections, right? Because there's like a prefix or a suffix, or maybe it's a pattern. Like it's not just a single word, it's like a certain proverb, or it's a joke, or it's a slang term. Like the more you know, like everything is connected. So it's just really, really powerful when you open yourself, and then later you can maybe fill out a little bit and say, okay, I haven't heard this at all, so maybe just discard this word for now. That's fine, but at least initially when you hear something, be like, all right, that's cool, I'll write it down. I don't know what's coming, I don't know what I'm gonna hear, what I'm gonna need. If you do think that you know what's coming, you're arrogant and you're wrong. You don't know what's coming. That's the thing, right? As a learner, it's very tempting, especially because now we're all adults, I assume. We're all adults here, so maybe we kind of want to design our own journey. And in some ways, that's good. You should have like self-agency and be able to pick up your mind and make decisions. But at the same time, sometimes you just gotta embrace what's coming to you, and not say it should be exactly how I want it to. No, man, just shut up and learn. No, but seriously, like you just gotta open yourself. That's what it's about. All right, cool. So this is maybe the very core of the video, like the message here, because many of you're not really being exposed to enough Danish. But it doesn't mean that you're not trying. Although I'm a bit rough in this video, I don't want you to get the idea that I'm calling you lazy or saying you're not making an effort. I know you are. But the problem is that a lot of us, we've grown up with this idea that it has to be like a language is something you understand. And like I said here, it's cool to grasp the grammar concepts and understand why some words are spelled a certain way, but don't let it get to a point where you obsess over understanding every single thing you encounter. So in other words, when you are so caught up in grammar and semantics and rules and but the subject is here and why is this word spelled like that? Oh, is that an exception? Oh, I don't know, it's too irregular, it's too unpredictable. It's like, of course you should learn basic grammar, and sometimes grammar is a shortcut. And there's something with prepositions. I made many videos about prepositions, and I made many videos about guessing the correct sentence. So you get 3 wrong sentences and 1 correct. So it is important in that sense, but it's still not everything. And there are many things that you will not be able to understand, like fully what the rule is, what the structure is. But the good news is you don't need to. Yeah, it sounds weird, right? A language teacher shouldn't say that, but it's true. You don't need to understand every single thing you hear. It's actually more important that you just remember it and you absorb it. You hear it so many times, like hundreds of times maybe. Then sooner or later it's gonna stick. It's inevitable, right? Because the brain, like I said here, cannot always process all the rules and patterns with this hardcore logic. Like you're like a computer, you're trying to process, you're like, oh, what is it, come on. Like sometimes you just throw that process out the window and say, you know what, it's fine, I'm gonna passively pick it up because I'm just being exposed to so much. And it is inevitable. It's very effective. You don't need to always know the grammar or know the logic behind a word, like why is it spelled this way, or what is the history, or blah blah blah. If you're curious about it, it's a hobby, you're a linguist, you like to be nerdy about it, that's all fine. But it's not essential to learn the language. I can remember you're learning because you want to use it. It's not like you're just studying it so you can say you know a bunch of theory. I mean, who cares if you know a lot of theory if you can't have a conversation? You might pass a test, but can you speak to a Dane? Like that's what it's about. So yeah, and also because, like I say here at the end on this slide, think about how you learned your own language as a kid. You didn't learn the grammar. You didn't learn how to like, oh, this is the object and this is the subject and this is like inversion, blah blah blah. No, you just learned by doing. Now, granted, I know that of course we all have jobs and responsibilities and things we gotta do. We don't have all day to learn a language, but you can try to simulate that situation or sort of copy as much as you can, as much as possible. Just listen a lot. That is the closest thing you can do. Or you can just be surrounded by Danish people who don't speak English, but that is hard to find. So, unless they're kids. So that's what I would say. You don't really need to know all the grammar. When I was like 17, 18, if there was an exam, English exam or something, I had to write a sentence. I didn't really know the grammar, I didn't know all the rules, but I did have a lot in my head. I watched a lot of Simpsons and South Park and all these things, so I just had a huge collection that I could like refer to. And if I was gonna write a sentence, I could say, oh, I think I heard this before. Yeah, I heard it. I've heard it more than once. Yeah, this is probably right. This is probably the way to write it. I can say this. Right? So that's what you want to think about. Absorbing is more important than understanding. Just soak it up. Be like a sponge. And that's the message. Be open, expose yourself, and absorb. And maybe say that grammar is cool, but it's certainly not everything. You know, the brain can rest. Because you cannot always be hardcore. Man, I don't expect you to. It's all good. But you can always listen. Like you can put something on the TV, on your phone, or your whatever, and just let it play, and go just read something a little bit here and there. It's very good. You don't understand everything at first, but you will remember, and slowly over the months or years, you'll kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. So yeah. Of course, this one I've talked about before, and you're learning Danish in a context, and this is also pretty big. I talked about it, I think 2 months ago or something like that, but I'll repeat it. Of course, it's fine to do exercises. You got flashcards, or you can watch videos with very isolated pieces of vocabulary. And this point again, I have to touch on it because it's kind of big. And I want you to think about this, not just hear my words and be like, blah, but really listen to it. Because my most popular videos are always something to do with verbs, adjectives, nouns, grammar, or phrases. Now, are those things important? Yeah, but they're not everything. Whenever I put out a video that's a little more experimental, like a little story or something, or a conversational monologue, usually doesn't get as many views. And it's not about me or any other creator, it's more about you as the learner. It's like, why are you cheating yourself out of that? Are you really saying, no, I'm not gonna watch this because it's not focused enough? I don't know what you're thinking, right? But the numbers don't lie. I can tell what people click on. So there's a real problem here, thinking that you can just learn a lot with this isolated vocabulary. Because here's the thing. You need to see stuff in a context. And when it's a longer context, it's easier to remember because it's connected by a theme. And maybe you'll hear the same word twice. You'll hear it in a different way. And maybe it's something with verb conjugation. Could be different things. Or it's because it's a story, it's a speech, it's a monologue, it's a theme. So you actually care about it. It's very hard to care about an example sentence. You don't really give a shit. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is how you say to do in Danish. That's nice, but I don't care about the sentence. There's nothing memorable. I'm probably going to forget it. So, I mean, that's kind of the brutal truth, that you're not gonna have a very good chance of remembering that. So that's kind of the point here. You really want to learn Danish from a context. Right? And I've talked about this before. It's very huge. Like, it's very huge. That sounds kind of stupid. It's huge. And it's really something important. Learn from context, and then you can study with it, or you can choose to just listen to it, just kind of read it without studying so much. There are different levels. Sometimes you're like in hardcore study mode. Other times you're more like in a chill, passive. Oh, I'm just gonna like put it on in the background, and then I'll pick up a few words here and there. It's cool too, but you gotta learn from a context. Phrases, yeah, they're great, but I mean, there's so much more. And let me just say this because I wrote it here. I gotta say it, textbook Danish, the Danish you learn in a textbook is not real Danish. It's an introduction. Like, it's something, introduction, I meant to write here. It's just something to introduce you to the language. It's something to get you started, and that's fine. It's all good. But eventually you have to go beyond that. And you cannot stay in this kind of closed textbook world, Duolingo or whatever. It's, I mean, again, they're fine, they have a purpose, but it's not everything. There is so much more to the Danish language. When I'm like talking to my friends or relatives, do you think I speak like I do in a video? I mean, sometimes I do if I speak fast in a video. Generally speaking, it's a lot more loose, it's a lot more colloquial. It also mix it with some slang terms, and there's some English in there because we can't help ourselves. But there's a very big difference between textbook Danish and real Danish. I mean, I know it's kind of obvious, you go without saying, but really, you gotta think about where you're learning your Danish from, right? And then when you're comparing and sort of evaluating, judging your own Danish, it's better to compare it to what you have heard from native speakers and not so much, compare it to the grammar rules. You can check the grammar rules, of course, it's fine, like the basic stuff. But it's better to go like, I heard this before, Thomas said it, or my boss said it, my coworker, my wife, my husband, someone someone in Denmark, a native speaker, or maybe it's a fictional character. I don't know what you're into. There's Matador, Rita, Borg, Langt fra Las Vegas, Clown, Badehotellet, Rejseholdet, Tax. There's so many good shows, and some of them you can watch for free. You can DRDK, the website. So there's so much stuff there, but think about what you heard before. Have I heard a native speaker say this? Don't obsess over the rules. And context. That's the key here. This is gold. I really want you to keep this in mind. Yeah. And finally, on the last slide, this is kind of a bonus segment. It's about motivation. There can be different motivations as to why you're learning Danish. It's fine, whatever, it's up to you. I will say though that if you're not really interested in learning the language for the sake of using it, if you're not actually looking forward to having conversations with Danish people or understanding movies, then what's gonna drive you? I mean, what is your motivation? What is it? Some people, maybe they just came to Denmark because we have better wages, you make more money in Denmark, and that's great. I mean, it's fine, I get it. Or maybe you want to pass a test because you want to live there, citizenship and that sort of stuff. But if you don't have a real interest in the language, it's going to be very hard to learn it, because it'll feel like a chore, like something you gotta do. It's not something you want to do. And that's really the question. Do you see learning Danish as something fun? I don't mean like fun 24/7, no, but like mainly fun, interesting, exciting, fascinating even. Do you see it as something fun, or do you see it as something boring that you just gotta do because you're supposed to, because you live in Denmark and people tell you to do that? So think about your motives. Nothing is wrong, morally speaking. It's fine to just do it for your job because you want to make more money. But it also means that you probably won't feel so interested in the language, and that can be a little bit sad. So again, what applies to you? Only you know that. I don't know that. Only you can answer certain questions. And this video, like I said in the beginning, it has a lot of generalizations and assumptions, but there are trends, there are tendencies that I've seen with learners, my own private students, and also other learners in general, in comment sections and just here and there. And you hear stories, I know what's happening out there. So yeah, this was a lot. This was basically about the mindset and the approach that you have to learning Danish. You gotta be exposed to more, you gotta listen more, you gotta read more, and be less obsessed with grammar. There's a lot of grammar materials out there, but that's because it's seen as the official way, the serious way, the proper way, because it's like very easy to quantify, and anything that's easy to quantify is good business. So a lot of companies, they're gonna focus on that, and that's a problem, right? Because then they may give you what you want, but they don't give you what you need, and that's tricky. What I'm doing here, what I'm doing with my videos, is I try to balance it. My voice is getting a little bit tired. Yeah, it's been 30 minutes. Essentially, it's good to have a balancing. If you're a beginner, of course you need to learn the basics. It's fine to have a big focus on grammar because you want to learn how things are connected. Verb conjugation, what about this adjective? Why does it look different now than before? Oh, there's a personal pronoun. How does that affect things? Like all this kind of stuff. Of course you want to know the basics. You got to do that. But you cannot master Danish just by learning grammar. It may be fancy, you might pass an exam, but it's not really going to make you fluent or bring you to a very high level. And I mean, you want to speak to Danish people, right? You want to understand our culture. That's the goal, I assume. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for today, right? This is something I've been thinking about for a long time. I mean, I always think about it, right? I ask my students, so what have you been watching? Have you watched that show I recommended you? Did you find something else? Like, can you hear the difference between Danish videos, like educational stuff, like my videos or someone else, and then movies and TV shows? And yeah, there's a difference, and that's why you need it. So it's important. Maybe it doesn't seem official. Maybe it's not what the school recommends, but it's hella effective. So that is just awesome. Now, let me see here what's going on in the live chat. Oh, there's 2 messages. We got okay, I cannot read those letters, but you're saying hi. Okay, hi. And Lily Wang, I guess that's a Chinese last name, saying, so you mean is even if I don't understand at that time, just remember, right? Yeah, essentially, you can try to understand it and it'll help. But if you can't, like if you don't know the rules, it's fine. Just write it down or keep it in your memory somehow. It's okay. There's too much emphasis on grammar, and I know that my video alone, like one single video, is not gonna change that. But I think recently I had a realization. I realized that I've given you a lot of vocabulary and also a fair amount of grammar over the past 3 years. You know, it's been good. It's been very it's been heavy. You could say it's been effective, but I think now is the time to also help you see the approach and the way you learn the language, not just the materials, not just the vocabulary, but also how you use it, because strategy is very important. You all have the same materials, but still some people learn faster than others. Why is that? Is it genetically disposed or something? Is it just some people are lucky? Yeah, probably those are factors, but something really has to do with the method and with the approach and the mindset. When I see someone beating themselves up because they've been in Denmark for 5 years and they still make some mistakes, I'm like, yo man, just chill. Or lady, just chill. Like, it's fine. You just have to change your approach. Maybe gamify the language more, turn it into a game. But I think that's for another video. I have some more thoughts about that. Let's try to keep it on point for today. So yeah, was there anything else I'm supposed to tell you for now? We have something here from Asefa Belay. Is it recommendable to go to school, and so are there free Danish language schools? Okay, so I don't know if you are in Denmark. As far as I know, it's either free or you pay a deposit and then you get it back. If I'm wrong, someone can correct me, because I'm not in touch with those schools. Of course it helps. It's still something to get guidance. You just want to make sure it's not your only source. Sometimes people, not you, the person who commented, but sometimes people, they tend to have a very binary view. They're like, oh, should I study grammar? Or should I don't know, learn phrases? Or should I have Duolingo all the time on my phone, just playing it, or should I just have fun, watch videos and that's it? But I'm like, no, it's not one or the other, it's both. Like, why not? I mean, drain water from all sources. Have fun is also a state of mind. Having fun is a state of mind. So yeah, I mean, learn as much as you can. We don't want to discriminate. I just want to make everybody aware that there's more to Danish than the official way. Then we have a name that's also hard to pronounce, Miesko Kosma. Would you say that passing P sort of means that I can stop from some grammar for now? I cannot say that because I don't know how good your Danish actually is. But I would say that if you've only been focusing on grammar so far and if you can't speak, then it's time to pay more attention to speaking rather than grammar, right? If you think you know the rules, then okay, cool, apply them. I know many students, for example, they know how inversion works in theory, but then when they speak, they make mistakes like 90% of the time. And I'm like, yo, man, you know the rules. What are you doing? But it's just because it's a habit, right? So you need to enforce that. Then we have Marina Rossi. I read them, American. Anderson Taylor, because it's the only book you can find in Belgium with the audio itself. Oh, really? Okay. Is it some good vocabulary or a bit too old to speak the current Danish? Yeah, that's actually interesting. So it's not a simple yes or no. It's useful, just don't make it your primary source. Because yes, some of the Danish are a bit archaic. The spelling can be a bit off, absolutely. Especially if it hasn't been updated, the spelling, sometimes it has. But it's okay. I mean, you still learn things here and there, right? Just a little bit of that, and then a lot of modern Danish, right? You want to learn from different sources. It's kind of like when someone is learning Japanese, they shouldn't just be watching anime. I mean, they're going to sound like a badass, but sounding like Monkey D. Luffy or whoever is not realistic. You're not going to sound like a real person. So in a similar way with Danish, you wanna learn from all sources, right? I actually think that one of the best sources is the sitcom called Clown, like clown, Klovn, Clown. It's on TV2 Play or TV2 if you just watch regular TV. TV2 Play is the app on the website. It's really good because most of the scenes, the lines are actually improvised. Like they have a starting point and an ending point where the scene has to go, but the actual lines are improvised. So there's a lot of fillers like yeah, okay, no, yeah. Like it's very, very natural Danish. So yeah, it's probably one of the best shows for learning Danish. Maybe not so good for beginners, but anyone who's been in Denmark for a while, like if you want to hear natural Danish, that's a good one. Clone is your friend. It is super cringy sometimes, but it's really funny. Okay, I do think, yeah, that was the last in the live chat for now. All right, cool. So yeah, guys, thank you. Oh, before I go, just a quick reminder. Yeah, I also said in the beginning of the video, there's a discount on danishmaster.com because, yo, it's winter. It's almost winter in Denmark. It's getting cold and it sucks. But at least if you can save a little bit of money on the video packages, I think that's both silver, gold, and diamond, then that's good. I think that can make everybody's day a little bit better. So yeah, there's that. And also I'm working on something. I kind of mentioned it already. I'm essentially making some interactive exercises. They already exist in other apps, but I'm trying to give them like my spin or my touch. So they become interesting and relevant and not just robotic. And pronunciation has to be more natural and not like, hey, like a coffee. Like, who the fuck talks like that? Nobody, right? So yeah, I'm trying to make it interesting for you, and yeah, there's still more stuff to do. I want to make it good, so I think maybe in another 2 weeks or so, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, we'll see. Then I got something good for you on the website. I think if you're a diamond member, you'll get all that. But if you're not that, then don't worry. I'll make a video also in a few weeks where I'm basically testing it out for you. I'm showing you how the software works. So yeah, it's gonna be really good. I'm very excited about that. I think it's about time I make something interactive, and some technology has enabled that. Now it's possible. So hell yeah. Okay, was there anything else in the live chat? Nope. Okay, that was the last one. That's cool. Well, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you soon. All right, peace.